A look back to second, the 0-2. Del Valle lifts it out to left center field. This one gets down, base hit. Greeley around third. He busts it for the plate as Pruitt mishandles the ball and it rolls all the way to the wall. Greeley scores. Diaz in behind him. Del Valle races for the plate himself. The throw does not come. Del Valle headfirst slide into home plate safe, and the RailCats take the lead. It's now 11-9.
Hope you can still go. I never answer to no, man. I still go. Go, go, go.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich, and what a win! Well, first of all, the shed's basically complete. I got the roof on it, new shingles on it, I just do fascia stuff, but that stuff can be worried until after the off season at least. So, yeah, it just kind of sucks that I missed like really the last little bit of the RailCats season, even though it really wasn't missing much between the two podcasts that I've done. They've both been wins, and in between those have been losses. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for today's game. Holy crap. And you know, I know I put on Facebook, and I know I put on Twitter, I said I don't know what happened, you know, with the Del Valle inside the park home run. Well, because at first I didn't expect that. I expected like one run to be scored, and I was like one of those, I have a bad habit of where I'll see what's going on, then I'll assume what's just going to happen. So I just assumed that Pruitt would have had it, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, Ryan Zimmerman said, you know, Diaz scored. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, Del Valle scored. I'm like, wait, what? And then going back, and I know I put the video up, you know, before the podcast started, but looking at it, you know, this is one reason why I really, really, really hate turf fields. Because if it wasn't artificial turf, now, in the case of the RailCats, it benefited the RailCats. But I'm just saying that Pruitt wouldn't have had to, that ball would have never bounced the way it did and flown 10 feet in the air for him to miss it. You know, that's why for baseball, I think artificial turf is the worst playing surface that anyone could put out there, because it's just so bouncy, and it just looks like a bouncy ball out there. And that's you know, yes, it helped the RailCats in one way, but I just, as a fan, that frustrates me more than anything, because it's like that should have been just an easy play, maybe 1 or 2 runs scored, the game's tied, and we're going extra inning, or we're going to the bottom of the ninth and kind of play from there. But since it's artificial turf, the thing goes flying in the air and the RailCats benefit, and it's a positive. I'm not, you know, it's a positive thing to take away, but it's a negative thing in the aspect of I think it ruins the game just a tad bit. But that's just me personally. So I'm not really gonna get much into like what I've technically missed, because really the games, you know, okay, I would say the what was it, the 3-5 game on Friday night, where they made it a little bit interesting. You know, that was a big one that kind of made it interesting a little bit. You know, you take the series away from Chicago, that kind of stuff, and you ruin the Chicago's chances of clinching a title in the East. But then, I mean, yesterday's game was a complete blowout. I mean, even Thursday's game was an 8-0 game. So it was like the games really haven't been, you can kind of just feel it. Like the team doesn't give up, but you just can kind of feel it to an aspect. That's how it kind of felt today. You know, you get up to that 4-run lead, and Milwaukee just starts coming back. So let's go ahead and break the game down real quick. I'm just gonna go over like scoring plays and maybe little things here and there, but I'm not gonna go like in depth in every inning, so on and so forth. So in the second inning, Castillo starts the inning off with a triple. Bockley flies out to center, causing a sac fly, making it 1-0. Sierra strikes out for out number 2. Greeley walks, Diaz walks, Del Valle drives in Greeley with a single, makes it 2-0. Valera drives in Diaz, making it 3-0. Mariaga grounds to third, and Gomez steps on third to get Valera out. And then going to third, Gonzalez pops out to the second for first out. Castillo gets on first after an error by Hill, Castillo steals second. For his 4 stolen bases, Buckley also strikes out in the same pitch, making it out number 2. Then Sierra singles, bringing Castillo home, making it 4-0, and then Greeley struck out. And then in the 4th, Milkmen decided to get on the board. Hill flew out to Del Valle for out number 1. Ward doubled. Morales singled, moving Ward to 3rd. Krause advanced to 1st on a fielder's choice. Ward scored for 1. Morales was out for out 2. At second for out 2. Krause was gunned down by Greeley at second for a caught stealing. Then Cancel grounded, and then in the 5th, Milwaukee scores again. But starting it out, Cancel grounds out to Gonzalez. Gomez singled. Martin singled. Pruitt hit a 2 RBI double, making it 4-3. Echeverry, I know I'm gonna screw that name up, but it's just gonna happen. Hits an RBI single to tie the game at 4. Hill strikes out. Ward flew out to Castillo in the 3rd. For the 3rd out. In the 6th inning, both teams scored. Greeley grounds out to 2nd. For the 1st out, Diaz singled. Valera gets on 1st after a fielder's choice. Diaz out at 2nd. Valera hits his 3rd home run with a two-run blast to left field, which is 3rd of the year. I don't know what this power numbers. All of a sudden, Valera's just coming out with these power numbers. He's been such a precision hitter almost to a certain extent, and there's just the powers coming around. Maybe that's a positive thing. Maybe that's a positive thing to take away from, I know Valera's a little bit older player-wise, but maybe that's a benefit to, maybe look for next year, having a potentially solid guy and maybe more of a solid DH role if you're looking for someone younger to play majority of first base or fielding. So that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out in the offseason a little bit. And then Mariaga flies out to right for the third out. Then in the bottom of the 6th, Morales singles. Krause strikes out looking. Cancel walked. Gomez flew out to Castillo. Martin singled, moving Cancel to 2nd. Pruitt Jr. hit another 2 RBI single to tie the game at 6. And then Echevarri strikes out for the 3rd. Then Aaron Phillips comes in relief in the 7th for Julio Vivas. So looking at his line, Vivas went 6 innings, gave up 10 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. He had a killer first four innings, and then the 5th inning kind of just faltered, and then the 6th kind of just it was just all kind of one of those that just kind of drains down. It's just he was on I think in the 4th inning he was on his 39th pitch. He was just mowing these hitters down. He was blanked him for 3 innings, and then just it just seems to happen with all these pitchers is that they hit this patch and they can just never fully put a good outing together. There's only been a hand, I think Vivas has been one of those hand select few that have just really put a solid outing together, but it's never been consistently putting everything together. We're not seeing 3 or 4 outings that are consistently good. Now, once I get into the end of the year and we, I look at all the stats and we break down each player and everything like that, we'll get a better idea of what we kind of had and what went things wrong. But just looking at the team itself or the pitching staff itself was you get good outings here and there, just not consistently the 3, the 4, or the 5, a full rotation of great pitching from top to bottom, or guys being consistent that maybe outside of Irwin, him being hurt probably hurt the team. Now we don't have John Sheeks anymore, but I'm just when I look at the stats, I'll be able to make better arguments of what I'm trying to get at. I just don't have all. I'll probably look at some of the stats at the end, but it's just one of those that's just the way it feels, and this is one of those games where Vivas was having a stellar game, and then it gets scuffed up at the end. When you look at his stat line, he didn't really pitch the best, but then you're like, oh man, he pitched so well, and then just those last 2 innings just really hurt. But moving forward, Phillips strikes out Hill. Ward hits a solo home run for the lead, making it 7-6. Morales grounds out to Gonzalez for the 2nd out. Kraus hits a double. Cancel hits a double, which brought Kraus home, make it 8-6. Gomez hit the third double in a row, scoring Cancel, making it 9-6. And then Martin flew out to Mariaga for the third out. And I believe in this inning, the way I think it was in this inning. Let me look back at my scorebook here. I want to say, yes, it was in this inning that actually, so Morales and Cancel are both on, and Gomez basically lines out to Castillo, and it was a diving line drive, and he made a beautiful diving catch. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, he just saved a run. There's 2 outs. The game's still tied. The momentum's going your way, and you're thinking that at this point, this was the turning point of the game to a certain extent. That was an amazing play that Castillo's had. I know he's made a lot of good plays. I know he's kind of been hit with the error bug a little bit, losing the ball in the sun, that kind of stuff. But I think this really made up for a lot of it. It was a big situation to make a play, and he did. But then just like one of those that the pitching just didn't come through because Martin singles, and then Pruitt hits the 2 RBIs, and then Echevarri strikes out. Or was that back in the 6th? I think that was back in the 6th. I guess I missed that part. Back in the 6th inning, I kind of feel like that was a big turning point. And then the pitching just didn't. That was one of those innings that Vivas could have gotten out of, and it just didn't happen. So that was the one that I missed there. And then going into the 8th, Greeley flew out to center. Diaz was hit by a pitch, and this is kind of where things kind of got a little funky. To a certain extent, got a little funky. Diaz advanced to third on a missed throw pickoff attempt by German. Del drove home Diaz on a single, making it 9-7. Valera singled, moving Del Valle to second. Mariaga singled home Del Valle, making it 9-8. Gonzalez flew out to left. Castillo walked, forcing the bases loaded. Buckley grounded out to the pitcher, who threw Valera out at home plate. And that was like, at that point, there was 2 outs, but that hit just kind of deflated. Like, oh, what's this gonna be like? Because they're gonna bring in their closer, basically. Hadley was gonna come in and he was gonna do his work, because I guess the past 2 times that he's faced the RailCats, he gave up 2 runs. In the first game on Friday, he gave up 2 runs to the RailCats. So maybe, but out of that, he's been pretty well locked down. Before that, he gave up 2 runs against Lake Country in a 10-5 win, but they weren't earned against him. So like the last time that he had earned one was in August 15th against King County. So he's been pretty good for them, for Milwaukee. It's just that he some reason can't pitch against the RailCats. So Sierra flies out to right, Greeley walks, Diaz singled, and then Valera hits a 3-run inside the park home run after Pruitt. I wouldn't really say necessarily misplayed the ball. It's one of those, like, when you're playing the infield and you get a bad hop, that was one of those, like, where after, really watching it and going, that ball really jumped. It would have been very hard for him to even make that play in the first place. It was one of those, like, all right, you either dive and try to catch this ball, or, like, you just let this ball hit the ground and go flying up in the air. And now thinking about it, there was earlier in the game, I forget who it was, Milwaukee hit a single, and it was one of those, like, I think, I was watching Mariaga play the ball, and, like, he took, like, 3 steps, stopped, and then, like, 2 seconds later, the ball hit the ground. I think on a normal field, he would have been more aggressive towards that. But I believe on the artificial turf that he's trying to play it, that big bounce. So it's like one of those like, all right, do I sacrifice the hit and the guy just get a single, or do I sacrifice trying to dive for it and the next thing you know, or play or rush up on it? And what happened to Prue is that ball goes flying over my head and the guy ended up scoring. So it's one of those like, you know, in that kind of mindset, you know, being home field, you should already have that advantage knowing that ball, you know, but it's also a big situation of the game because, you know, you're trying to shut the game down and you already have 2 runners on, 1 out. You're trying to make a play and you didn't make the play. You end up costing the team, really. Because then Valera grounds out and then Mariaga strikes out. Eisenberg comes in, sets the Milkmen down 1-2-3 with 2 strikeouts. So, yeah, I mean, that's basically how the game itself wrapped up. Hopefully that was a little bit better to understand to a certain extent. I know it jumped out. Sometimes you forget some things, and when you start talking about it, then you remember it. You don't always fully write it down right away on that aspect of it. So, just looking at the RailCats stat line, so, you know, Julio doesn't get a decision. He pitched 6 innings, gave up 10 hits, 6 runs, 5 earned, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Phillips comes in. He gives up 4 hits, 3 runs, all earned, 1 strikeout, 1 inning. And then Adi Nunez comes in. He pitched 1 inning, gave up 1 hit and 1 walk and 3 strikeouts. And I made a comment on Twitter and Facebook because who was it? Gray came in. Yeah, Gray who came in, who hasn't basically hit since like his high school year. And because he's a pitcher, and Nunez threw 4 pitches like nowhere near the strike zone. So I don't know if it was like a mental game, but it's just like just pump him in there and see what happens at this point, because at this point the game was kind of already out of hand when he took over. So it was just kind of when I was like, just kind of make it for what it is to a certain extent, because I think he came in the I guess the game was still kind of close to a certain extent, but it was just one of those like maybe not kind of situations where, you know, you just got to make something happen, and it was just a weird. But he ended up getting himself out of it. He only gave up 1 hit, the 1 walk with the 3 strikeouts. Nunez gets the win. Eisenberg gets the save. Looking at the RailCats batting stats here, Diaz had 2 hits, scored 3 runs, 1 walk, got hit by a pitch, 2 strikeouts. Del Valle had 4 hits, 6 at-bats, 3 runs, 5 RBIs. Valera, 4 hits, 6 at-bats, 1 run, 3 RBIs. Mariaga, 1 hit, 1 RBI at 5 attempts. Gonzalez went 0 for 5 with a strikeout. Castillo went 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 1 walk, and a strikeout. Buckley went 0 for 4 with 1 RBI and 2 strikeouts. Sierra went 1 for 5, 1 RBI and 2 strikeouts. Greeley went 0 for 3, 2 runs scored, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. The game was 3 hours and 6 minutes. Weather was like 90 degrees. They say the attendance was just over 1,200. Actually 1,201. So yeah, this is this is a time where you could really sit here and sit here and think, well, the RailCats have been basically out of the playoff race for two series now. And what you're trying to find in this aspect is not only maybe players you want to bring back, but what kind of culture is being bred within this locker room. And I think, even last year, the RailCats stayed in every game. Now, I'm not sure about years past how, when the team was getting blown out or losing, and how it was at the end of the games. But, with all the locker room confusion and all the other stuff that's been going on, the one thing that has stayed consistent is no matter what happens when they're playing a game, that's all that matters, and they're trying to win the game, and they're scratching and clawing at every aspect of the game, even if you're winning or losing or whatever the case may be. So I don't necessarily think that the players that are being brought in by Lamar is a huge issue. I think maybe some of the pieces haven't been as consistent, and I think that's something that you can't necessarily teach to a certain aspect, but you just kind of have to take it for what it is. I mean, the inconsistencies could be because of a locker room issue, not so much a talent issue. Is that this guy's not going to give 100% all the time versus that guy that's going to give that 100% all the time, or the old regime is trying to tear down the new players coming in, or however vice versa, whatever the case may be. What we're seeing from this team is the willingness to fight inch, and no matter even if the game is 8-0, they're still going to try to make it interesting. And that is something that you just can't teach. That's a culture thing. I think that's just the aspect of players that you're trying to bring in. And that's what we're starting to see. Now, is everyone going to be on this roster coming next year? No. Is there a lot of people on this roster that I could probably point out right now and say you're probably not going to be in the roster? Yes. Is that because your numbers haven't been productive or whatever the case may be? Who knows how it's going to work itself out? Maybe there just needs to be some kind of change, but we'll get into that all in the offseason. The big thing is what we're taking away is that the culture in the locker room, at least, or what maybe the coaching staff is preaching, is don't give up, always keep working. And if that's what we're building, the work harder every day mentality, the team is going to be good. I just don't think the talent level is there. I thought at the beginning of the year, this talent, the talent that was brought in was going to be above and beyond, or not above and beyond the rest, but a lot better than it was in years past. And, could it be a talent level issue, or could it be an inconsistency issue? You could probably put them both together. But with this Milwaukee Milkmen team, yesterday they basically annihilated Wilkinson, and that rarely ever happens. I mean, he gives up maybe two or so runs, but looking at yesterday, he gives up 5 runs on 5 hits. That doesn't happen. I could probably go through his entire stat line and not see a 5 anywhere else. No, not a single one. Not a single. He is literally given up no more than 2 runs. And he faces Milwaukee and he gives up 5. And I just think this Milwaukee team can just hit. And that's really that was his fourth time, 5th time facing them. So I mean, he's seen them decent amount. Maybe it was just one of those that they finally caught fire and they just got a hold of them. It still doesn't take away the aspect of how good he's been. It's just one of those things that maybe Milwaukee's starting to get a little bit warm and a little bit hot here, and maybe this game brought him down a little bit. But I'm just thinking Milwaukee's just figuring out how to hit the freaking ball right now, and that's just one of those cases. It's so hard to say what the issue is with this team. I don't know if we're ever going to really understand what the issue is unless we get inside the locker room and ask. And the thing is what the hard part is about how should I say this? If I were to maybe do an interview with Lamar Rogers or, whatever maybe someone on the team, you're never going to get the full truth. And that is a little bit to do with you don't want to, piss off your players because you don't want to piss them off to the point to where they just don't want to respond to anything. And I understand that. And, you want to be on the positive sides of things and so on and so forth. But I just want to know from the coaching aspect of it, the coach's view of what went wrong this year. Why all of a sudden did it just all kind of fall apart? And I think that's the biggest question is we just don't know. I mean, you can look at the stats, you can look at the games, and you can make your own judgment, but everyone sees it differently. And everyone, if you're not watching the team consistently and you're not watching them consistently almost every game or whatever the case may be, you're just going to assume the talent level just sucks and they're just a bad team and the coach just put a bad roster together. And I don't think that's the case. So it's so hard for me to try and figure this out. This is going to be an interesting offseason because there's going to be a lot of, last year was a lot of, well, he's going to make some moves and put his own roster in. There's not really much to think about. Most of the players from last year are going to come back this year. Not much to think about. But there's just been so much going on that I think you have to look at the aspect of what went wrong. That's going to be the question of the offseason is what went wrong. I know I'm taking away from the game today, which was a great game, greatly executed. Not greatly executed to a certain extent, but they found a way to fight back. And, this is the stuff that I wish we would have seen earlier in the year was the fight. They score runs, they gave up runs, they go down, they score more runs, they answer the bell. And we didn't get a lot of that this year was answering the bell. And I think they answered the bell in this game. And it was a great game for that aspect of it. So, looking around here as we wrap up the standings, I believe Cleburne did clinch the final spot in the East. So Doc Hounds blundered it. They lost 6 in a row to really fall apart on that one. And then on the west side, I know Kansas City takes Sioux Falls, so Sioux City and Fargo will face in the playoffs on that aspect of it. So I know the playoffs start next week, so it's going to be interesting to see who the Milkmen take in that aspect of it. I'm going to probably guess they're probably going to take Kane County. I don't know if they want to face the Dogs yet. I don't think they're going to want to face Cleburne just because of the travel. So my guess is probably going to be Kane County, but who knows? I know it's not a Milwaukee Milkmen podcast, but it's still good to fun and speculate that kind of stuff. But yeah, so good win, fun win, enjoyable. Tomorrow is the last game of the year, and I'm sad. But what are you going to do? This is what happens. 100 games up, 100 games up. Well, 99 games up, 99 games down. Obviously, one of the games was rained out, so we're robbed of at least one game on that aspect of it. But it is what it is. What are you going to do? So if you enjoy the podcast, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If that's on YouTube, Spotify, other platforms, share with your friends, families that might be interested in the podcast or finding more about the RailCats and trying to stay in tune. And I mean, that's what this is all about, is trying to keep fans engaged with the aspect of knowing what's going on when they go to the ballparks and that kind of stuff. So be sure to share the love, whatever you want to do on that aspect of it. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this. And go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Wrap this one up in green and white.